Welcome to Tier 1 Results. I am your host, Shane Schreck, and today's episode is going to be a great one. It's one of the favorites as far as the big project I have going on right now, which is the top 100 veterans to follow on LinkedIn. And I've been probably most excited about this show. Sorry to everybody else, but you got to play favorites sometimes. And I really think it's going to be a good one with tons and tons of good value and content for everyone out there. So I want to introduce Tom and Jen Satterly. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. Welcome to Tier 1 Results.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks for having us.
Really
Long time coming.
You're talking over me already, aren't you?
I am. Had a lot of coffee.
That's going to be.
That's hard to kind of get that flow going sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, the show definitely, our goal is just really to provide value to those listening, and I know that they're going to listen to these shows, and it's gonna help change some lives and save some people, and that's the goal. And I just kind of want to kick things off, kick the door in, if you will, and kind of just let us know about your journey and anything and everything you want to talk about. Let's do this.
Awesome. Anything and everything.
Yeah.
We could go everywhere. Yeah, I guess I'll start with my journey. I just joined the Army one day to get some college money, right? In and out in 4 years, and I'll go back to college, and that never happened. At least not in 4 years. And,
well, we're talking about college now. So
yeah, exactly.
A few years later.
Need to use that college money someday. But yeah, I ended up staying in the Army. I found a couple schools in Germany, like French Commando and German Ranger School. And I thought, there's something different than motor pool Mondays, and sucking, right? And I re-enlisted for jump school, got to Fort Bragg, and then I went and found the SF recruiters. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to try this out, and went SF. And God, that was in 1989. I graduated in 1990, graduated SF and was in language school, and some guys popped up that were in the Q course with me. And like, hey, we think you have what it takes. You should try out for the unit. I'm like, huh? What's that? Okay. Is it cool? I'll do that. And literally set me up with a recruiter phone number. And while I was in language school, they showed up over there and gave me the PT test and everything, and said, all right, we got you a selection date. And I packed up, moved to Fort Campbell, and was there for like 2 months, maybe 3 months. And they were all deployed at the first Gulf War. So I was just working out, getting ready for selection, and actually made it. And they came, I went back to 5th Group, and they returned from their deployment from the first Gulf War, which I was mad that I missed, right?
Right.
And they're like, hey, we got a new guy. I'm like, never mind. See you later. I'm heading back to Fort Bragg. And I spent, the next 20 years there, which was basically what ruined me. It was the best job on the planet, but it was also what ruined me, or what I allowed to let ruin me. It wasn't the organization that ruined me. It's what goes along with it that, kind of wears you down, and then you make different decisions, and then you ruin your path along the way, and you get in your own way, and then you're like, oh shit, I got to get out of my own way one day. But that didn't happen until after I met Jen. Yeah. I
you had the jackhammer, like, let's go further. Let's go further.
Yeah. I'm like, don't tell me I'm at rock bottom, man. I'm going deeper. Don't ever tell me when I'm done. But yeah, I mean, I retired out of the unit. I was an angry man. I felt I got screwed over. And it's funny. I talk to a lot of people now that left the unit. It's like, they all got screwed over. I'm like, well, nothing good ends well, or it wouldn't end, I guess. So True. Some of the stories that I hear are seemingly negative, or just not the happy day, where you're walking away from something you wanted to do forever, or you're hurting and you have to walk away. Yeah. It's your identity at the time. I mean, it's who you are. It's everything you'll ever be. It's why you're important, it's, and your friends are there, your buddies are there, and you've done things that you'll never do with anyone else. I mean, you can't explain it. People that haven't been there are jealous, and the ones that hate it are just more jealous. But the reality of being there is the destruction of relationships and who you are as a human, because you give it all to that. And I don't think that's relegated to just the unit, right? You're professional athletes that look at Tom Brady caught on camera the other day screaming, I didn't get a divorce to lose to this loser at halftime. I mean, that's his thing. That's his thing. I'm retiring. I'm not retiring. I'm retiring. I'm not retiring. I'm retiring. Oh, I'm not retiring. Well, I'm divorcing you because this shit's bullshit. That's a military wife right there saying that.
Yeah.
To him. So businessmen that travel all the time and are never home, they grow apart. So, and they have the struggles as well. And they don't. So everyone loses their identity. And then I get out and I'm tanking. I think I was working in Amman, Jordan for 2 years, training their military how to be special forces qualified. And that dried up and I came back and it all ended. I'm sitting in bed all day sleeping, and at night I'm watching TV all night with nothing to do. I'm retired, right? I'm just retired. I don't have to do anything. And that got easier and easier. And then the drinking got easier and easier. And then I started working contract work. And that's when I met Jen. It was one of those, I was overweight. I was out of shape. I didn't give a shit about myself. So I damn sure didn't care about anyone else. In walks Jen. You're going to meet a commando who was in Somalia and all this other stuff. And, and she's like, is that like a Navy SEAL? And the guy freaked out. And I'm like, what? No, this is a hero. And she walks in. I look like Jabba the Hutt sitting there like, hey, what's up, man? I didn't care. That was our introduction, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was not what either of us expected, honestly. And that's okay. I think a lot of relationships start like that. And we always joke that we started in divorce, but that's pretty accurate. It was really tough 2 years of not only did I meet Tom at that time, but I started working alongside him at that time as well. So I was working in special operations and I was totally a fish out of water. And I used to carry this little notebook around of acronyms because I didn't want to be that person on contract that didn't know what everyone was talking about.
Baby, nobody knows the acronyms, man. Nobody.
But then I got good at it.
Except her.
And so, it was a really complex time, but amazing time. Like I just told Tom the other day, I'm like, I kind of miss going on RMTs. And he's like, you do? I'm like, in theory, I miss it. If you put me back on target, I'd be like, this sucks. I'm hungry, cold, tired. But at the same time, I got to meet some of the most incredible, amazing humans that I've ever been blessed to meet. Green Berets, SEALs, Rangers, and PJs, and got to see kind of the same struggle that Tom was going through in every different unit I was working. And, Tom at that time is 46, 47. These guys are 24, 26. And I'm seeing the same kind of complex issues. And I kept thinking, God, these guys got another 20 years. And like, how are they going to make it? Seeing a Green Beret, one of our friends who was active, and, seeing him the first time and meeting him at a young age. And then by the time I was done contracting about 4 years in, he looked like he had aged 20 years. And just the weight of the war, the weight of what was happening at home, another divorce, really not knowing his children. And from there, I really said, hey, I need to step out of this role as combat camera and start a nonprofit, which Tom was very excited about that idea.
Like, what? How do you do that?
Yeah, it was a lot of struggle, but it's what it takes, right? Just figuring it out. We figured it out.
The short time in, she saw the need immediately. All of us in that bowl of soup, we call it the shit soup. You're all in it. You can't see through it. You're all warm and comfortable together. She jumps in. She's like, this is horrible. This is nasty soup. And we had no idea. And she's like, you guys are killing each other. We went to pick her up. I think we were dating at the time then, weren't we? Started dating.
I don't know which store you're going.
Right, yeah.
Sure.
And we had worked till, I don't know, 3 or 4 in the morning, just finished wrapping up, got back to our hotel room, and we had to start like in 2 hours, maybe 2 hours. So, you take your clothes off, you settle down, you get an hour of sleep, maybe. And I laid down, popped right back up because I'm running the thing. I got to be there early. I have to be the first guy there, man. I have to make sure, I can't let anybody beat me. She's like, well, there's no way. She was not getting up. And I said, we'll be back for you. I went back and
I was seriously thinking about quitting.
Yeah. I didn't know that at the time. I just
quit mid-cycle.
I got to the target, met everybody, got them going, set up for about an hour and a half, got work going. And then me and a couple of guys went back, let's go pick up Jen and grab some breakfast and come on back. Went to pick her up. She answers the door, hair's everywhere, just disheveled, I go, what's wrong? She goes, I think I have cancer. She's got a handful of hair. She goes, my hair's falling out. I go,
no.
It's just reverse cycle, baby. Don't worry about it. It goes away. She's like, what? And I go, no, we all feel that way. Just let's go. We'll go get some breakfast. So we stopped at a gas station on the way. She said, where's breakfast? I go, it's just any shelf you want.
Grab a churrito or whatever.
Grab a
What?
burrito or something. It's got eggs in it. She's like, this is not breakfast. She's freaking out. She goes, this is why you guys are all dying.
Yeah, it was like day 12 or something.
Day 12 of the same thing. And she lost it. I go, well, welcome to reverse cycle training.
took me a minute.
In the military. And that's when she
I didn't have basic training. I didn't get to like work my way into it. It was here.
Yeah, you got thrown to the top. Yep.
Yeah. Her first helicopter ride ever was pitch black.
And I'm totally afraid of
loading up a Chinook in Savannah, and she's videoing these seals going onto the Chinook in the dark. I come behind her and push her. I just start shoving her, and she's got the night vision on the camera, and that's it. She's in this helicopter, and I'm screaming at her, just sit down. She says, what? And the crew chief grabbed her, and I just took off, and they started flying, and
they literally grabbed me I had my backpack on, grabbed me by the back of my backpack and kind of shoved me to the front and put me down on the ground. And I remember looking at everyone, like I'm sitting on the ground and all the SEALs are above me. And I'm like, God, I need like patriotic music playing or something. This is like straight out of a Michael Bay movie. And I thought, I wonder if they could see me smiling. Like, I know I'm supposed to be like really cool right now, but this is fucking awesome. And
right.
I'm like, they all have their night visions on. So I probably look like a total, I don't know.
I'm on target cleaning up because they're exfilling. Yeah. So they're exfilling, and I start getting texts from her. Why is there hydraulic fluid or oil everywhere in this helicopter? And there's tape on everything. I go, that's why it's flying. That's what keeps it flying. Don't touch the tape and don't worry about the hydraulic fluid. It's just supposed to be there.
Or your safety
something's
briefing
wrong back there.
In the Bahamas was awesome too.
That was a good one.
And a Black Hawk. The guy's giving me the safety briefing. Pull this, do that. I'm like, yep, okay. But nervously, like, how do I remember? Do I push this button first? Or my God, it'll be Tom. And again, there was a lot of duct tape happening everywhere. and fluid everywhere. And so I'm like, is this thing going to go? And Tom's like, I don't know. It's that was their last flight.
That organization was disbanded. So that was their last flight of helicopters. They were drunk the night before celebrating. And Jen's like, you're not.
I saw
which
the
one
pilot.
You were flying the next day. I better not sniff your breath and find some alcohol in there. I go, don't sniff breaths, baby.
Yeah.
No, so
especially
Tom
those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. He basically said after the safety briefing, he looked at me and he goes, I said, just put I don't know. I can't remember what to do. And he said, don't worry about it. If this is a really heavy, we're going over water. If we go down, we're flipping and we're dead. So just don't worry about it. Thanks.
I don't want to give you false hope or anything. I was like, what am I going to explain to you how to unbuckle this? And then, oh, by the way, swim your way out of this helicopter. We've been trained to do that. And I'm not worried about it, but it was one of those, don't worry about it. You'll probably be dead anyway. It was my idea of making her feel better.
He's got some really strange ideas about how to make people feel better.
I could imagine.
It's one of them. It was one of them.
Yeah. It gave her a peek in, underneath the curtain, right? Like seeing what's going on and behind. It was one of those, I joked, she was so embedded with us that one guy was talking about getting help with his spouse down the road when, I need some help with my spouse. We always have issues. We fight, blah, 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 blah. Then the next night we're at a bar and talking. And the guy walks over to her. He's like, hey, you want to be my wingman? And Jen's like, what? See that girl over there? Yada, yada, yada. She looks great. You want to walk up with me? She goes, you go first. And she goes, yeah, okay. But you think your wife will appreciate that? And he's like, oh, yeah. And I go, well, now that's embedded. That's fully embedded. That dude forgot you were here. Forgot he told you he was married and wanted help with his spouse. And then wanted help with you to go pick up a girl. I go, now you're living the life right now. You are living the life. Yep, let's help these people. That sounds
about right.
Yeah. So we did. And we do.
Funny.
Yeah. So that's when it started of guys weren't coming home. We do this training iterations and we're the last people they see before they deploy. We're giving them all the realistic, hamburger inside the suicide vest. So when it blows up, it sprays you with stuff and IEDs and, whatnot, that everything that we've seen over there. And then on the next training iteration, she's like, hey, where's Jim? Jim, he didn't make it. Where's Mike? Well, Mike didn't make it either. She's like, after a couple iterations of that, and like the first training iteration, they had to cancel and send us home. And she's like, what's going on? I go, a couple SEALs got killed. She's like, this is training. I go, yeah, for combat. People die in training all the time because it's just like combat minus the enemy is not really shooting real bullets at us, but a vehicle had rolled or something. And
yeah, a vehicle rolled.
And she just, I can't, she met with one of the 160 pilots. And I think this was a story that broke her. And she had to go to the restroom. We were at Savannah, and they got to escort her to the restrooms because there's no female restrooms there. And this guy's like taking her to the restroom while we're doing a briefing, and he starts talking about his fiance. Yeah, he's a bathroom buddy.
2 days, I felt so bad.
Started talking about his fiance, and he's going to propose to her in New York, and it's going to be so romantic, and was asking her for tips and ideas.
New York. Yeah.
And then he was supposed to fly me and another person to Virginia Beach, and we elected to drive. And so they went out and flew that night along the airstrip in Savannah in a helicopter. It was one of those hours kind of things where at a certain hour something snapped. We would have been halfway over the swamps of North Carolina and been dead. But that it was on the airstrip in Savannah, and he managed to crash it in such a manner that only killed him.
Oh, wow.
And she was like, God, I heard his whole story about how he was going to propose to his fiance. And she says, fuck, I'm done, right? I'm done. I cannot send these people to war anymore. I want to help them when they come home because they're all fucked up.
Not all.
Mostly all fucked up.
A few, and rightfully so, rightfully so. And so, yeah, I told you I'm an empath, and I just didn't feel like, I didn't understand truly why God put me in that place. I didn't understand it until the role I have currently, which made a lot more sense of, I truly do feel like I'm in my mission or my place, my purpose now. And I wouldn't have been able to do what I do now had I not really truly get to see, like you said, underneath the curtain. Again, I never went to combat. I never went overseas. And, there was some opportunity, and honestly, I don't know how you guys do it. I had 2 small children, and for me, the risk of not coming back, and leaving Luke and Claudia was just too great. And also I was 42. I'm thinking, I think this is a younger person's game. But what I did get to see. That's a true statement. Yes, absolutely. And what I did get to see, though, I mean, the amount of bravery, the V word that isn't so popular, but the vulnerability was so intense and so heroic. And like I told Tom, I said, Tom was involved in the Battle of Mogadishu, Black Hawk Down. And I said, God, the vulnerability of all of you that night. And I think this is when we first got together, and he's like, vulnerable. And
there's nobody vulnerable around here, man.
And I said, well, I mean, then you weren't brave, and you guys were absolutely the bravest people on the planet. So that doesn't really add up. You can't be brave. You can't be courageous without being vulnerable. Otherwise, there's no risk there. Anybody could be. And so I think that getting to see that, getting to understand it's not the Hollywood version of special operations or war. It doesn't look like that, I guess maybe minus a few. I don't really know. You've told me Saving Private Ryan was.
Yeah, I walked really out of the opening scenes on that one. I was like, okay, that's intense. I feel that one,
Yeah, but the Hollywood version often doesn't stack up. Or just like I was 37 when I met Tom and started working alongside of him. So my entire adult life was spent in the creative arts. Talk about a completely
what a change.
Opposite
little different.
Yeah.
When I met her, it was
a little bit.
Yeah, I was like, whoa.
We were literally completely.
Do you walk with the angels of light? I'm like, what? What's wrong with you?
God, kill the angels of light.
They're like, that's what I kill those people when I'm hungry. It was one of those bravado meets life, and just it's like, no, I was resistant to everything kind. I had zero empathy or compassion. Right? I would not do it. I didn't have it. I didn't know what it was anymore. And she was so nice, it sickened me. I would get angry.
Yeah, literally, you would ask me, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "What did I do?"
How nice she was to me, or the children, or she's making her daughter, her kids, pancakes with blueberry eyes. They look like Winnie the Pooh and shit in a honey pot over here. I'm like, "What the fuck? Make pancakes, man! You gotta go. You're spoiling those damn kids." I was like angry about it. Like, man, everybody's having a good time but me. And
that was it.
And that was me in holidays too. And that's what we hear a lot of veterans in holidays, a lot of veterans in any special day. If it's not their special day, and if it is their special day, it's probably worse. Right. Is it's hard to feel the joy.
Yeah.
Or it's hard to share in the joy. You're there, you want to be there, and you're there and you're doing your work. I'll clean the house and I'll get the gifts ready and I'll get gas for the car and the grill and the food and happy birthday. And you're like, is everybody happy with the food? And it's like, the joy doesn't come with it, and it's maddening at times.
Well, and also I think with TBI and PTS, there's a lot of biological things that happen that Tom didn't understand. I didn't understand. Neither of us understood. And so part of our mission was understanding traumatic brain injury. Part of it was understanding what are biological responses to trauma. What does that look like? And once we started understanding those things, a lot of that shame and guilt that he was carrying, he was able to start peeling that back and releasing it. But it took years. And, you know, most recently last summer, I believe, Tom had a brain scan when he had the stellate ganglion block shot. They did a brain scan before and after for both Tom and I. We both had the procedure done. And Dr. Farber in Hollywood called and said, "Oh my gosh, this is incredible." You know, he's this amazing big
title. I don't know what it is.
I don't know if he's a neurosurgeon, big brain guy. But it was amazing. He didn't know Tom. He didn't know his career. He maybe or maybe not knew he was military. I'm not even sure. But he for sure didn't know the extent of his career, you know, 20 years in the unit and thousands of missions. But what he did was pull up a NFL player's brain. And he said, "Look, this is an NFL player that I worked with for years who was heavily concussed. He played, 10, 12 years. He said, your brain looks just as bad, if not worse." And started to describe Tom literally to a T by his brain. So he would say things like, "Do you get angry?" But not just like normal person angry, like you get raged. Angry in a second. It doesn't go normally. It goes straight to just complete and utter loss of control. And Tom's like, "Yep." And he's like, "Okay, this part of your brain that monitors that, it's broken. It's red instead of blue. The part, you know, do you sleep 2 to 3 hours and then you have a really tough time falling back asleep? Yep. Okay. That's this area of the brain. Do you have obsessive compulsive issues? Yep. A few, you know," and literally was able to go through all of these things that Tom either felt embarrassed or shameful that, you know, an operator's not supposed to be this way. A warrior's not supposed to be this way. And here's this doctor saying, this is exactly who you are because of this injury, and we can treat it. He showed the NFL player's brain 2 years after he started working with him. And then he showed a normal brain and he said, "Look, I got this guy back to good." He was homeless, living under a bridge. Another NFL player brought him to this doctor to help him. He's a pharmaceutical sales rep now, making a lot of money, doing really well. He has his life back. And that gave us so much hope that it's not a matter of willpower. It's not how tough you are. It's not if you're a badass or not. I mean, I consider Tom a pretty big badass.
But you weren't trained in that area, right? All these guys I love removing these excuses. I had them all at the same time, you know, before I had every excuse. I'm a badass. I can drive. I can do that. I've been trained. You know, I've done it all. Right. And I'm really good at it. Well, I'd never done that. I'd never spoken with anybody about relationship help or my own mental capacity or how I felt inside. So I just wasn't trained in that. So we try to tell everybody, listen, it's not that you need help. You never needed help. You didn't know how to shoot a pistol until someone told you how to shoot the pistol. And then you kept doing it over and over again. And then once you got good, you had to practice to stay good, right? CQB, the same thing. Whatever job it is, you have to be taught it first. You have to do it enough to do it well, to build that muscle memory and develop those habits. And then you have to keep up with that your entire life, or you'll start to falter. You know, you won't be as good at shooting. You won't be as good at driving. You won't be as good at CQB or whatever it is you're doing in your job unless you keep doing it. It's the same with a relationship. It's the same with how you feel. It's the same with your mental health. And as soon as I say mental health, you're like, "Ooh, I'm fine." Yeah, we're all fucking fine, right? We're all fine. But if we don't go get help with something from somebody who knows better how to do it, right? Like we bring in the best drivers, we bring in the best shooters to teach us, but we're tier one. Who's going to show tier one guys what to do? The guys who specifically do that one job well. NASCAR drivers teach us how to drive a NASCAR style. You know, rally car drivers teach us how to drive rally car ways. Different shooters teach us how to we just try to bring back around what everybody says. I don't have this, or I don't know how to do that. And I wasn't trained for this. Like, or I don't, you know, I'm trained for this. Why can't I handle it? And I'm like, you weren't trained for it. You were trained to go to war. You were trained to shoot, move, communicate, medicate, seize property, take lives. And then what? Do that again. And then do that again. They never kept going with, let's talk about what that makes you feel like. Let's talk about 6 months later or the next day, or you don't get to bury your friends, right? You're still deployed and your friends are buried. Let's talk about that. Well, we haven't. So when it hits us one day, we're like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Nothing's wrong with you. You just got to get busy. Like with everything else you wanted to be good at, you have to get busy.
And be patient with yourself.
Yeah. Patience.
And forgive yourself as you stumble. I think it was really hard for Tom was the 10 steps forward, 5 back. And the 5 back, it would feel like, my God, I'm here again. I'm here again. And even as a spouse, I would feel like, shit, we're here again. You know, he was doing so well, or things seem to be going really right. And I think people will look at us on Facebook and think that we've got it all figured out. And people have even said to us,
Perfect.
Hey, you guys have all the answers, or I want my relationship to look just like yours. You guys have this
you
perfect
don't.
relationship.
You don't.
I'm like, I thought we put a lot of our really dirty laundry out there. I don't know where y'all are getting this story from, because
we were honest about this shit we talked about. We were
right.
We were serious. What she said about what I did. She was serious.
Yeah. And so, you know, even when Tom, I hate to call it a slide back. I don't know what term we'll have to come up with one, I guess, or maybe pick someone else's. But when he was challenged this summer, and really a lot of those PTS symptoms kind of were inflamed. They kind of came back. There is moments where you're thrown back into survival mode. You're trying to get through the day. Oh. And it's, I had a friend she's pretty well known in the military community and has an amazing podcast herself. And when we were connecting, I said, yeah, it was a tough summer. And she said, why didn't you tell me? You know, I've been through this, and I can help you through it. And I said, sometimes you have to go inward and you've got to process things by yourself, and you've got to come up with the answers by yourself. And it's not that I don't love and cherish my friends and our support systems, but sometimes you need to face your own demons and you need to fight them alone. And I think that's also can be very confusing to people, because you guys are born and raised in a team, and isolation can be very dangerous. Frankly, it's the number one indicator before someone dies by suicide is isolation. So I would never encourage someone to not reach out or tap a buddy or, a friend or a family member for help. But sometimes I think we also have to give permission to people to walk their own steps in their own journey. And it's going to look very different at different times in your life, even for the same person.
And it's not a bad diagnosis. A lot of the people, the veterans, I almost said guys, but guys and gals, a lot of the service members don't want the diagnosis of post-traumatic stress. I don't want it. I'm fine. And then I've heard a lot of the spouses are angry when they get that diagnosis as, oh, now you have an excuse for acting like an asshole, right? It's like, oh, wow. A little caregiver fatigue there, maybe, you think? Maybe just sick of your shit now. Eggshell syndrome, that's called secondary post-traumatic stress. When someone's so tired of your shit or, I say that. She's like, no, let me describe it better. But when someone behaves a certain way, you don't want them to behave that way, so you behave differently so you don't set them off. That's eggshell syndrome, right? Secondary post-traumatic stress. You are now behaving differently in fear that I'll behave differently. So I've changed who you are. Because you can't be who you naturally are. You have to change that in fear of triggering us, or me. Yeah. So now I've created someone else with a problem. So you can catch post-traumatic stress, right? It used to be a joke. Hey, can I catch post-traumatic stress as I hop into bed with a veteran? It's like, what? But you kind of can, because you really do behave differently when someone you love lashes out or behaves differently, and you're trying to help them.
I think that's why spouses are so key. Even when Tom had a treatment, and we asked, when will he need another one? Because they said, oh, it could last 3 months. It could last 3 years. It just depends. And so I said, well, how will we know? And he said, you'll know. And I said, me? And he said, yeah, you as a spouse will be able to tell him when he needs one before he will be able to assess that he needs one. And sure enough, I'm like, I think you need that shot again. And, I think it was a first of, I'm good. And then maybe 2 days later, I'm like, yeah, you're right. I do.
We'll always argue it. I'm fine. I'm not broken. I'm not even re-broken or a little bit broken. naturally we don't want to be that way. So no, I'm fine. And if I really pause and think about it, okay, I'm starting to get a little rough again. I'm starting to get a little rough around the edges again. It's not flowing off my lips as smoothly as it was recently. So yeah, it's always good. It's always good to reassess along the way, right? We do it with everything else in our lives. We did it on our missions. We did it at our jobs. Reassess. How are we doing? Are we doing okay? Are we on the right path? We don't do it to ourselves in our own lives. We just kind of neglect ourselves because
us included.
We're caregivers. We're always, right?
Like this summer, there was the opportunity, it was that moment where I reached out to another organization for help. And I said to Jesse Gould, an amazing guy, has really been so helpful to so many people in the community. But, it was one of those moments of swallowing your pride, saying we run a nonprofit to help people in this community, yet we have to pick up the phone and say, hey, we're burnt out. We're struggling. We need some help. We need a lifeline. I was able to do that with Jesse, but I will tell you, it was hard. We encourage people every day to say, hey, reach out to someone. And here I am saying that message for 6 years and sitting there at the computer ready to type Jesse, like, we need some help. It took me a minute. And it's just, I think it's good for Tom and I to have those reminders as we're asking people to take those really hard steps that we've had to take them to. We've taken them recently. And it isn't easy, but living in a really tough spot is worse.
Yeah.
Like pick your hard.
Yeah.
Time
will pass.
Yeah. I had a TBI as well. And one thing I've come to understand that, my brain kind of got rewired, and I call it either spiraling effect is when I'm not good. And when it happens again, I just re-spiral. It's kind of my term for that. And it's tough. I hate it. And I never know how bad it is until I see what it's doing to my wife or the kids or something. And it's tough, but yeah, it's a constant battle. But yeah, I think it's great that there's so much being done about it now that that we're getting somewhere with it finally.
Yeah, thank God.
I call that the shame cycle for me.
Yeah, for sure.
We address it as it's a cycle. It keeps happening, right? And I do something horrible. And I'm sorry. And she feels bad. And then, okay, she forgives me. And then I think about it, right? I'm a jackass. I did it again. And I'm pounding on myself, putting myself down. And then I feel worse and worse. And then I do something bad because I feel horrible about myself, and you got to break that cycle. And it's good to learn some tools that we've learned along the way that we teach at our retreats that break that cycle quicker, right?
For sure.
It's all tools in your tool bag, man. What do I pull out now? What do I pull out in awareness? When am I getting mad, and why? There's times I get mad and there's nobody around, or nobody's doing anything, and I just get mad. I got to fuck something up now. When I finally recognized that and brought it up to her, she was driving a car down the road, which is, typically you wouldn't be driving with me in the car. I got to drive. No. I need to be in control, man. And letting her drive, and I'm chilling. I got mad. I started in my stomach. I was burning, and then moved up to my chest. And I was breathing. I was like, I'm a fucking man. I'm going to clock somebody. Maybe it was a car drove by. I don't know, but normally I would want to teach somebody a lesson on the road, right? And I used to be the guy that wants a plow on the front of my car so I could run you off the road and show you how to drive correctly, and
awesome.
Hated everybody. And it was that focus. But once you become aware of it starting, instead of lashing out at her because she's there almost all the time, who am I going to take it out on? Who's right there? Her. Right. I'm going to turn to her and be angry. And instead of that, I turned to her and I go, I just got mad at you. And she's like, what? What for? What am I doing? I go, nothing. You did nothing. So we had this open conversation about what I was feeling that I'd never done before. Ended up laughing about it. And then we didn't have that argument that would have spiraled out of control for probably a day.
Yeah.
And then it just is, it's gone to where we catch it quicker now. Even if we jump into an argument.
Yeah, for
with
sure.
those tools, one of us now, instead of just one of us being trained in it, one of us will catch it as soon as possible. Alter that course. You're not developing more muscle memory of a negative cycle. You break it quicker. You work on the better cycle that you want. And that's the muscle memory you're developing. So it's work. It's like teaching somebody who already has anticipation of recoil built into their fucking arm. And they're always shooting low, and they change their zero. So they're hitting the fucking bullseye, and then you fix that anticipation, and Now they're just pulling the trigger and their fucking bullets hitting low, and you fix the sights. Now they're hitting the bullseye. And you're like, you break the bad shit first. Then the new shit can come in and stack on top. But that's the hardest, is getting rid of those bad old habits first. I'd rather have a fresh person that never shot before to teach them how to shoot. Just like I would have a human that's never had trauma, right? I don't have to show them all the negative trauma releases and the tools, right? I've never had it before. So it's just as similar. And if guys could understand that, all those commandos out there that are just fucking fine, if they would understand that, yeah, you're fine. Why don't you go get trained up on something else and make you even better, right? Make you even stronger as a warrior and keep you healthier. And well, by the way, your family will appreciate it. Your kids will love that birthdays are funner instead of like a militant, get together.
I think it's what we've discovered. So much of it is not just in our relationship, but I feel really privileged that we get to do these special operation couple retreats.
Yeah.
And every single time we have anywhere between 8 to 10 couples. We just did our 9th, one at Big Cedar, but I think we're probably at 15 now. We've done them for other units as well. So, but we always learn. Tom and I always grow. We always learn. Other couples bring things forward. And it's always really profound. And, during those retreats, I think one of the things that we talk about in that shame cycle is, the secondary PTS, which honestly we'll go around to different bases and we'll ask people, have you heard of secondary? And we usually get like 2 hands up out of hundreds. People really aren't educated on how war or trauma can affect everyone in the home, even though it's kind of obvious, right? Like, yeah, but it does have a name, and that also can be healed with proper work and time. But I think what you have to learn is that dance that you have between each other as a couple now, where Tom talks about, I'm starting to get angry or frustrated. And of course I can read his body language quicker than anyone on the planet. And I'm getting all of these nonverbal cues that something's not right. And so I start adjusting my day. I start maybe cleaning or putting something away, because perfection driven aggression is so much part of that injury that, if it's not perfect, it means chaos. Chaos means death. So death means I've got to get on it. I've got to get big. I've got to dominate, and then I'll get all secure and I'll figure out, what needs to get figured out in that point in time. But that doesn't really work really well in the home. And so you find that your children or your spouse is adjusting to how am I going to do this dance? And what does that look like? And so the more you can break that cycle, not only is it incredible for the service member or veteran to feel better, you deserve it, you've earned it, you deserve the right to be happy, to have joy, to live a good life. That's your right. That is your birthright. And so, Tom and I had this moment on the retreat where I said, you're a good man. And he laughed at me and he's like, you don't know everything I've done. I said, I don't need to know everything you've done, and what you've done. You need to get peace with it. Whatever that looks like for you, whatever you've done that you want to tell me, I'm here to listen to you with an open heart. There's no judgment. I understand that war is war and it's not pretty. So if you have a story you want to tell me, you could tell me that story. It won't change how I feel about you. But what we're hearing at these retreats so much is it isn't the fear of sharing with your spouse. Well, part of it is, right? The guts and
out of protection.
Right. Like, hey, you don't need to hear what that looks like. You don't need to hear that story. But what the spouses need to hear as well is, I'm afraid, like 9 times out of 10, when we really boil it down, is I'm afraid you're going to look at me differently after you hear the story. You might love me differently. You might think of me as an entirely different person, and I need to protect my version of you. And so that's so much more of what we're hearing on these retreats. And I just, that came up this last retreat, and it was so profound. Just this different, the spouses wanting to be included, them wanting to know what this mystery mistress is, the military, this thing that you love that is taken you from me. And so, to encourage people to start having those conversations as husband and wife, partners, of you don't have to tell the details, but start peeling back that onion just a little bit and let the other person in. Let them be your battle buddy at home, because that's what will save lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, you kind of made me think. So I guess I hadn't thought about secondary PTS before, and it just dawned on me that that's totally happening in my household, because I'll get upset. Heck, we were trying to go to the pumpkin patch. For some reason, Sunday's a heck of a day for me. I don't know what it is, but it's hard for me to get through a Sunday. No clue why, but it is. And so we were going to go to the pumpkin patch, and I'm just angry. I'm just sitting there being silent, just even getting angrier on a lot of stuff that probably is just in my head and not even just looking into stuff too much. Well, we come to a stop sign. I decide I'm going to jump out of the van and walk, because that's kind of my thing. I just, wherever I'm at, just take off and walk. And my wife left. She kept going, and I was like, all right, well played.
Yeah.
I'm out on this highway, and I'm like,
what the fuck? That didn't work out well.
Yeah, that backfired, and I'm thinking, well, I know they're going to this pumpkin patch. I know it's west of here somewhere, somehow. So, and I knew it was right off that highway. So I was like, all right. So the plan was just to keep walking. Of course, I left my cell phone in the van and everything else. So I'm like, wow, this is a lesson. I'm being taught a lesson right now. And finally, she comes back. It was a while. It seemed like a long time, but mainly because the two little boys, my 8-year-old and the 3-year-old, were like, "Hey, they weren't happy with Dad.
You gotta get Daddy."
Yeah, we can't leave him. And so I jump in the van, and she does have a good way of disarming it sometimes, because she goes, "Did you get that out of your system?" And she kind of smiled or kind of laughed about it, which for me helps, because then I'm no longer in that fight mode to, throwing fuel on the gasoline, or throwing gasoline on fire is not going to work at that point. And so she does a good job of that. But one thing that made me think of the secondary PTS is a lot of times when I kind of get like that, she gets upset and hurt, because she says, I'm not allowed to have some feelings sometimes, because I have to change how I think, because, of maybe setting you off or something like that. And that, yeah, so I'm glad you guys touched on that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And us warriors don't realize we bring our tools home, right? Spouses are home, scrubbing the house, doing the things, whatever they think we like. And then we walk in and what do? We do an AAR, which is never anything good.
What's wrong?
There's a beautiful house. I'm going to come in and point out, the jump master. What do they teach us? What's wrong? So we come in and we're like, oh, didn't have time for laundry today, huh? Beautiful house.
Yep.
And then she'll get mad, like, what? I'm just making a statement. But I damn well know it's not a good statement. I mean, I played that game long enough. Boy, it's just a factual statement. If you're upset about it, it's your fault. And I'm like, why do I play those games? Why did I play those games? And I hear guys playing all the time, like, oh, I know how to interrogate. And I've used that on my spouse a couple times. I go, you're telling yourself she's the enemy now, man. I go, don't use your craft at home.
I take Sears spool and I just insert it home.
Yeah. We come home with those tools and we use them for protection. It's always for protection. Yeah. But it's just not needed at home. So that's our thing, is to try to break those habits of what have we brought in home, from our last 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years of what we've done. It's going to be who you are. It's going to be how you act and behave. And if you're not aware of that, it's time to pause and realize I might be a jackass at home, because they didn't sign up for the military, and I'm acting all military here. I hear I'm not your private, I'm not your soldier, I'm not a terrorist. Like, damn. Must be treating you pretty bad if you said I'm not your private or terrorist. It's the awareness of how we act.
Yeah, I get that a lot just from the parenting. So when I met my wife when I got out. She had 3 kids, so we got 4 total. And my 2 oldest, his dad passed away years back, and so it's a little different dynamic for me. And obviously, I got Gunner too, and I don't realize how much. Because my take on it, I'm being the loving father, because I always say the phrase that I only have so much time with you before I have to send you out into the wild.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I know I go too extreme with it, but I rationalize it all the time too, because I just know that the world's messed up and it's getting even worse. And it's hard for me to catch myself sometimes and be like, like my 8-year-old is super smart. And he just played football, his first season of football, which was tackle, thank God, that they weren't doing flag or anything. And he was relentless out there. They called him the honey badger. He was just and it was like,
ever.
I love it.
It was the most, yeah, he don't. And it was, I had so much pride and joy that he was out there doing that. And then every once in a while, I have to stop myself and be like, he's 9 now. So, but he's just 9 years old, and that's hard for me sometimes to do that. But I battle with that, and my daughter, I would love to just be, daddy's princess kind of relationship and stuff, but I'm trying to make her tougher than the boys even. And yeah,
that's a struggle.
It's a battle.
It is.
I do the same thing. I did the same thing. My son's 3.
Yeah.
God. And we barely talk. And I wanted to make him tough. My 2 stepkids, one's in college now, and the other one's
16.
fresh sophomore. So just turned 16 at a house, 15, 16-year-olds the other night. I'm like, I don't know what to do, right? I don't know. It's hard to connect. And the story you were saying, I told her all the time, it's validation for my behavior of, I need to teach them how to survive in the wild. I need to teach them to live, and then we're done. Then we can be friends. But I need to teach them how to cook, clean, be safe, and drive. And all those things so they can make the mistakes here at home, And it's like, she's like, yeah, but can't you do it nicer? I'm like, probably could. You're right. I could still do the same thing a different way, but this is the way I know. Get down. There's no crying. Stop looking at that. And they're like, but I'm 4. Yeah. You don't have the experiences I have. I guess I should ease up a little bit.
Yeah, I think that was a big moment for you. I mean, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, Tom was talking about, why can't this get done this way or this way? And I'm like, he's 11. Like you got to give him a break. He hasn't been around as long as you have. He hasn't experienced anything that you've experienced. So you've got to relate to him on his level, which for Tom was very, very difficult, and I think stereotypically for men, it could be very difficult, as we raise in different ways. Moms and dads
right.
do, and have different roles and purposes, maybe even. And I think to have your child prepared to go out into the world's critical. It's like you said, it's getting worse. It's not getting better. So it's really important to feel that your kid can survive out there.
Oh, and yeah. And I feel like with the other 3, my stepkids, I didn't have time from the beginning. Lincoln, the honey badger, he was 2.5 when I met my wife. So I've had a lot of time with him, and it's funny because he's shaping. There's a lot of things that he does that are similar to me, and so the 2 youngest boys will have a lot in common. But the oldest 2 is just I wasn't there from the beginning, so I feel like there's this urgency to do it, and I guess that's just parenting, though, right? We try to, we know we're going to fail all the time, but keep going. Yeah.
Our therapist said even the best parent in the world will get it wrong at least a minimum of 30% of the time, but most people are getting it wrong 70% of the time. Like an average parent, 70% of the time you're getting it wrong. So flip-flops. And I thought, thank God you said that. I feel like I mess up all the time.
It's important to remember, though, even Shane, that you're doing it for protection.
Right.
It's out of love, but we'll hammer ourselves for how we do it. Right. And then we feel bad. It's like, but if we stop and think about it, well, I'm doing it because I love you. I'm doing it out of love, out of concern. Right. So that's that message for everyone who gets down on themselves a lot about, I fucked it up again. Well, who doesn't? Right. Who doesn't? And if you're trying to do it right after that one, then you're doing the right thing. If you don't give a shit and you just keep fucking it up and you never try, then you got a problem,
And you're choosing it.
Yeah. But you don't change, you choose. Right. So,
right.
Yeah. I think that's important for people to realize that even arguing with your spouses, right? Both of you are arguing to be right. And that's when the relationship's losing, right? So when you both argue for the relationship and you both realize that, well, what she's doing is for me, it just seems fucked up right now. And what I'm doing is for her, it just seems a little fucked up to her. And we're not meeting, but we're really doing the same things. We really want the same things. It just maybe at a different pace or at a different path, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
We can remember that'll get us past a lot of stuff. And that again is a habit to develop, to pop into your head. It's hard. We fight all the time. And it's like, I'm not telling myself, well, she's doing it for me. I'm thinking, fuck you. I'm thinking, fuck you. And she's like, well, let's try that thing that we talked about in therapy. Fuck, that shit doesn't work, because I want to win, right? But if I did it, it would work. And so that's the patience, and that's the persistence and the diligence of behavior change. We behave, people are like, I'm a monster. Okay, fucking change it. You just identified the problem. Don't keep identifying that I'm a fucking don't keep identifying the problem.
Right.
Change it.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? We have the skills. Set a timeline if you want, backward plan, checks along the way. How am I doing? Where am I starting? I'm going to start right now. Yeah, always get a buddy involved, one that also needs help, but one that's going to hold you accountable.
And that could be a spouse or
there's so much we can do to get busy.
Anyone.
Yeah. There's people we can rely on. There's set your calendar, whatever it is you do on a daily basis, do it for the things you want to change. Do it for the things you care about and the things that you think need worked on. And then ask somebody, what do you think I need to work on? Like your spouse. Hey, what is it you'd really love to see change in me? And I won't get mad if you tell me, I promise. And then work on that, right? And work on it. Like, well, you need to change. It's not what you say, but how you say it. I'm like, fuck that. Oh, okay. Fuck that. But yeah, it was how I said things, right? Not what I was saying. It was how I was saying things.
Yeah. We worked on it.
Yeah, a lot. And by we, she means me.
Yeah, I know, that's a big problem of mine too, because I know that she just she goes, you just turn into like this beast. She goes, sometimes you don't even have to say anything. I just can feel it, like this angry bear. So
yes,
they do. They really, and you feel it when they say something, you become aware of it. I'm like, oh, I do feel the heat coming up into my chest and into my eyes, and I probably they are popping out of my eyes right now. And I want to murder something.
Go find a punching bag.
That was all out of protection.
Go for a walk. He does all that walks too.
All that
get some nature in you.
All that anger and judgment kept you alive, right?
Yeah,
right.
Served a purpose for sure.
So now we realize it's not probably going to happen, but possibly could happen. So I can maintain some of those skills and let down some of that guard, and let my family realize I'm at the dinner with them, instead of pulling guard the whole time.
Yeah.
Heard that so many times.
For our listeners, what are some ways that they can reach out to the foundation and
yes, please do. So you can find us at allsecurefoundation.org. We are on all the, well, I don't want to say all anymore.
I removed ourselves from Twitter this morning.
We are on a few social media, like LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook as All Secure Foundation. We have an incredible social media director that puts out tons of resources, tons of great articles, tons of great information. So make sure to check us out there as well. And there's a contact form right at allsecurefoundation.org. That contact form goes to Tom and I directly. And so, if you're struggling, if there's an area that you're curious about, a modality of healing maybe you've heard about that you want to get some information on, we partner with other nonprofits as well. So even though we might not provide that service, we can probably get you to that service. So questions, resources, best we can, of course. And reach out. It's quick, it's simple. We try to make it as painless as possible. Like Tom said, you're just looking for some training or some retraining.
Yeah, anything from yoga to psychedelics. And all in between. We've done it. We know organizations that do a good job that we'll send people to and get it paid for.
Yeah, there's really no excuse anymore. Like you said, there's 45,000 veteran nonprofits. So there's a lot of help out there, and there's no reason to wait.
We do coaching, 365 days a year for special operations.
Now,
families.
Stacy's like, you just signed me up for Christmas.
Almost 365 days a year for families, the special operations families. So if a warrior's not ready and the spouse is, come on, spouse. Typically, the warriors get interested if the spouses start popping out with ideas and they're like, that's working, huh? I guess I'll give it a shot then.
New TTPs.
Yeah. But there's always new stuff and stories from other people on there, always stories of other people that reach everyone else. Like, oh, I felt the same way. Oh, good. There's an answer. So there's always an answer out there to help someone.
Good deal. Well, I really, again, I appreciate your time so much. I loved it. I loved every second of it, and I know it's going to give a lot of value to the folks out there. And thank you so much for what you're both doing. It's just, I can't say enough about it. And just keep doing what you're doing, because it's obviously making a big difference. And I know that there's a lot of us out there that need the help, and it warms my heart to know that it's getting done. So thank you.
Thanks, Shane.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, Shane.
Absolutely. This is Shane Schreck. This is Tier 1 Results. Have a good one.